You know that moment when a static, kind of boring web page suddenly comes to life? That's not magic. We're going to pull back the curtain on how that happens. And it all comes down to JavaScript and its special relationship with something called the DOM. I mean, think about it, right? You click a like button, a menu slides out, maybe an error message pops up in a form you're filling out. These things feel instant, but they're not just happening. They're carefully orchestrated. So the real question is, how does your click actually do anything on the screen?
Well, the best way to picture it is as a conversation. Yeah, really. You do something, the web page responds. And the language they're both speaking, the thing that lets this whole back and forth happen, that's JavaScript.
Okay, so for JavaScript to change anything, it first needs to understand what it's looking at. It needs a map, right? A blueprint of the entire web page. And that blueprint, that map, is called the DOM. So the Document Object Model, or DOM for short, is basically how the browser sees your HTML. It's not the actual text file you wrote. Think of it as a live interactive version of your page that lives inside the browser's memory. It's a structure of connected pieces that JavaScript can actually talk to and change. The easiest way to think about it is like a family tree for your web page. Seriously. At the very top, you've got the HTML tag. That's the great-grandparent of everything. It has children, like head and body, and they have their own children, and so on, all the way down. This whole parent-child structure is absolutely key because it's how we're going to move around and change things. And this brings us to our first huge interview takeaway. If someone asks you, what is the DOM? Please don't just say it's the HTML. The answer that's going to make you stand out is it's a tree of nodes in memory. See, every single one of those elements in the tree is called a node. Using that word shows you really get what's happening under the hood.
All right, so we've got our map, the DOM. Now, the next logical step in this whole conversation is for JavaScript to find the exact thing it wants to talk to. I mean, how does it pick out one specific button from a page that could have hundreds of elements?
Well, you've got a few tools in your belt. There's getElementById. Think of it like a sniper rifle, perfect for hitting one single unique element. Then you have getElementsByClassName, which is more like a net for catching a whole group of similar things. But honestly, the modern, flexible tool you're probably going to use 90% of the time is QuerySelector. Why? Because it uses the exact same CSS selectors you already use for styling. That makes it super powerful and just easy to use. And here is our second killer interview tip. This is a big one. QuerySelector only ever returns the first thing it finds. That's it. So if you've got 10 paragraphs with the same class name and you use QuerySelector, you're only getting the first one back. If you want all of them, you got to use its sibling, QuerySelectAll. Knowing that difference is absolutely crucial. Okay, so we found our element. Now for the fun part. This is where we actually make something happen. We need to tell our button or our title or whatever to just listen, to wait for the user to do something. Like, click it.
And the way we do this is with something called an event listener. Let's just break it down into 4 simple steps. 1, you've got your target, the element we just selected. 2, you attach the listener itself using the .addEventListener method. 3, you tell it what to listen for, in this case, a click. And 4, you give it the action, basically a function that holds all the code you want to run the moment that click happens. And here's exactly what that looks like in code. See? We grab our button, we use addEventListener on it, we tell it, hey, listen for a click. And then we give it a function to run. So the second a user clicks that button, boom, our function fires off and that alert message pops up. It's so simple but incredibly powerful.
Okay, another crucial interview question coming at you. Why use addEventListener over some of the older ways of doing this? The killer answer is this, because you can attach multiple listeners to the same element. Think about it. One single click could kick off an animation, send some data to a server, and update some text on the screen, all handled by different, clean chunks of code. This is absolutely essential when you start building anything complex. So what can we actually do inside that function once it runs? Well, a really common one is changing content. And you have to pay attention here because there's a huge difference between inner text and inner HTML. If you use inner text, you're just putting in plain text. Simple. But if you use inner HTML, the browser actually reads and renders any HTML tags you put in there. So you can, for example, make text bold, just like in this example. Changing styles is another big one. Now, you could take the direct route and just change the inline style property, set the color to red directly. But for building real maintainable websites, there's a much cleaner way, adding and removing CSS classes that you've already defined, using something called class list. And that right there leads us to a super important professional habit. And yeah, our final big interview point. For code that you or someone else can actually understand later, always prefer managing styles with class list. It just keeps things clean. Your styles stay in your CSS file, your logic stays in your JavaScript file. That separation, that's the mark of a pro. All right, we've got the fundamentals down solid. Let's level up and look at a couple more tools in the modern developer's toolkit that make all this stuff even easier. So, modern JavaScript has these awesome, super readable methods for working with strings. Instead of writing some complicated code, you can just ask a question. Does this string include a certain letter? Does this URL start with HTTPS? Does this file name end with .html? It's so clean, it basically reads like plain English. And hey, remember that family tree structure we talked about? Well, you can actually climb around on it. From any element, you can jump up to its parent element, move sideways to its next element child, or even grab a list of all of its direct children. This is so useful when you need to find things that are next to or inside of each other. All right, we've covered a lot. We talked about the blueprint, how to find elements, and how to make them react to the user. Let's boil all of this down to the absolute most important takeaways that are really going to help you in your career. Okay, this is it. This is the slide you want to screenshot. If you remember nothing else, remember these 4 things. They're what separate beginners from pros. 1, the DOM is a tree of nodes in memory. 2, query selector only gets the first match. 3, add event listener is awesome because you can stack them up. And 4, class list is the modern, right way to handle dynamic styles. You master these 4 points, and you are well on your way. So there you have it, the whole conversation, from start to finish. It all begins with the DOM as the map, JavaScript as the language that listens to the user, and it ends with a dynamic, interactive change on the page. That's it. That's the heart of the modern web. The line between a static page and a real application has basically been erased. You now have the keys. So, what are you going to build first?